They spoke of unity. They spoke of welcome. They spoke of a jubilee that was meant to embrace every believer. But when thousands of Catholics devoted to tradition came forward with open hearts, ready to join this pilgrimage, something shocking happened. At first, the Vatican welcomed them. At first, it seemed like the door was open. But then, just as suddenly, that welcome was erased, wiped away as if it had never existed, like a name written in the sand, easily swept away by the tide. Why? Why them? What fear could possibly lie behind this silent exclusion? This is not just a matter of dates or timing. This is not about schedules or mistakes. No, this is a sign, a deep sign, of an underground battle that has been going on inside the church for decades. And now, before the eyes of the whole world, that battle is breaking into the open again. The tensions between the Holy See and the priestly society of St. Pius X, known simply as the SSPX, have exploded once more. Any illusion of lasting peace, any dream of reconciliation is once again shattered. What we are seeing now is not the start of something new, but the latest eruption of a conflict that has resurfaced again and again for more than 50 years. Rome promises dialogue. Rome promises acceptance, but at the same time Rome strikes with decisions that carry the taste of condemnation. It is a back and forth that has left wounds, confusion, and pain among millions of Catholics. What makes this latest episode especially disturbing is not only the action itself, but the fact that it was tied to the Jubilee. Think about that. The Jubilee is supposed to be the very symbol of unity, of reconciliation, of open arms for all. It is meant to be the clearest sign of the Church's mercy and welcome, and yet, this is precisely where exclusion was most visible. The very event meant to proclaim no one excluded became the moment when a group of faithful Catholics were told, silently but firmly, "You are not one of us." For months, observers had noticed a warmer climate. Positive news about relations between the Vatican and the Society seemed to multiply. Statements suggested the spirit of dialogue. Meetings gave the impression that perhaps normalization, at long last, was on the horizon. It was as if the ice of the past had finally begun to thaw. But history should have taught us that every apparent truce in this long story always ends with a cold shower, and this time was no different. The timing was no accident. It seemed designed to remind everyone that, despite diplomatic smiles and carefully chosen words, the Society of St. Pius X remains, in the eyes of Rome, a foreign body tolerated, but never truly accepted. Their chapels are full across the world. Their priests baptize, confess, say Mass, and their sacraments are valid. No one denies that. But the faithful who attend are surrounded by a cloud of suspicion, of irregularity. As if they were second-class Catholics, Rome speaks of dialogue. Rome speaks of walking together. But it does not take the real steps needed to resolve the situation once and for all. Instead, the ambiguity is maintained, almost as if it were a tool or weapon that can be used when needed. At times there is tolerance. At other times, correction or condemnation, depending on the climate, the headlines, or the need to make a statement. It is a strategy of uncertainty, a way of keeping the society in a position where it can never rest, never be secure, never be fully part of the family. The most shocking event came in mid-August. The SSPX had been officially included in the Jubilee calendar with their own pilgrimage to Rome. It was publicized, announced, planned. Thousands of faithful were preparing to come from all over the world. Their presence was expected at St. John Lateran, where they would pray the Rosary and pass through the holy door, a powerful sign of faith and unity. And then, suddenly, it was all gone, without a word of explanation. The Vatican website removed every reference to the SSPX pilgrimage. All the other pilgrimages remained, past and future. But this one alone was erased. Can anyone believe this was just a mistake, a technical error? No, it was a deliberate act, a conscious exclusion. The message could not have been clearer. You are not welcome. And the hypocrisy of the official Jubilee message, a year for everyone, no one excluded, became painfully obvious. Everyone is welcome except those who remain faithful to the old traditions, except those who refuse to bow to every new principle of the post-conciliar church. For many traditional Catholics, this was not just a disappointment, it was a wound. A pilgrimage that should have built bridges and strengthened ties with Rome was transformed into a gesture of hostility. Instead of unity, the faithful received rejection. Instead of reconciliation, they were given humiliation. The Holy See chose the path of silence, but its silence spoke louder than words. And this was not the only front where the clash erupted. Around the same time, another controversy began to unfold, this one in Sweden. Cardinal Anders Arborelius, Archbishop of Stockholm, publicly pointed his finger at the society after a bishop, Monsignor Bernard Felle, administered the sacrament of confirmation. To Catholics attached to tradition, confirmation is a normal sacrament, a beautiful moment of strengthening in the faith. No Catholic could deny its importance. And yet, because it was done by a bishop of the society, controversy exploded. The Cardinal released a statement warning Catholics against participating in the sacraments of the SSPX. He said they lack legitimate canonical status. He spoke of unity with Rome, but in the same breath, he spread doubt and fear about Catholics receiving sacraments from priests and bishops of the society. And yet this is the striking point: everyone knows the sacraments are valid. Rome itself admits it. No one denies it. Confirmation given by Bishop Felle is just as valid as if it had been given by any other bishop in the world. So why the outrage? Why the warnings? The answer is not about theology and not about grace. The real issue is visibility. The sacraments administered by the society happen outside of diocesan control. The bishops of the society have no territorial jurisdiction. They answer to no diocesan bishop. They represent a freedom that cannot be controlled by the normal structures of the church. And that is what frightens many in the hierarchy. Not invalidity, but independence. The contradiction is glaring. Communities that have lost the sacraments altogether, communities that have no apostolic succession, are welcomed into dialogue. But Catholics who hold fast to the old tradition, who preserve the sacraments, who remain faithful in every way to Catholic teaching, they are branded as dangerous, divisive, and irregular. Is this not a paradox? Is this not upside down? The Society of St. Pius X was not born against the Church. It was born within the Church, founded to serve the Church, to protect her tradition. It was the hierarchy, or at least part of it, that decided after the Second Vatican Council to treat the Council as untouchable dogma and to drive the society outside the canonical perimeter. Decades later, that wound remains open, and rather than healing, it seems to deepen with each new act of exclusion. The words of Cardinal Arborelius and others do not build unity. They sow division. They confuse the faithful. They create a situation where ordinary Catholics, who only wish to receive the sacraments and grow in faith, are made to feel like outsiders. They are told their sacraments are valid, but at the same time they are told not to go. It is a contradiction that cannot last forever. The deeper issue is this: the official church seems to fear tradition more than it fears secularism, more than it fears heresy, more than it fears the emptying of the faith in the modern world. How long can this go on? How long can Rome keep the wound open? Keep playing this double game of half acceptance and half rejection? Because with every act of exclusion, with every silent condemnation, the belief only grows that tradition is being treated as an enemy inside its own home. And yet, in the midst of all this, the faithful of the society continue. They gather in chapels. They bring their children to baptism. They kneel at the altar to receive the Eucharist. They stand firm in the sacraments and the traditional liturgy, even when despised, even when ignored, even when humiliated. In their persistence lies a testimony that cannot be erased. The Church is in crisis. It has been for more than 60 years. The numbers show it. The empty seminaries, the closing parishes, the collapse of Catholic identity in many countries, all of this is real. And yet, instead of seeing tradition as a lifeline, many leaders treat it as a threat. Instead of welcoming Catholics who cling to the old Mass, to the faith of centuries, they exclude them. Instead of seeing strength, they see danger. This is the painful contradiction of our time. The institutional church marginalizes its own tradition, while that same tradition continues to give life, to give faith, to give strength to countless souls. The contradiction is unbearable, and yet it continues year after year. The question remains open: who will have the courage to admit the truth?